Hello everyone, I'm Kayla, one of your professors at English Without Borders, and welcome to part 2 of Applying Confidence when Speaking English. I'm really excited for this video. In past videos, we have worked on building our internal relationship and internal confidence with English, and now it is time to give you some practical tips and recommendations so that you can be really prepared when you go into those introductory or first conversations with other English speakers that you meet all over the world. So let's get started. One thing that is very important is being comfortable with talking about the topics that will most likely be brought up the first time you meet someone. So what do we need to think about? Okay, what are the most common topics to talk about in English when I first meet someone? And also importantly, what should I not talk about when meeting someone for the first time? If you know what the questions that a new person you meet that is an English speaker will probably ask you, then that will help you be better prepared for the first interaction that you have with them. So here we go. So in this video, I am going to give you an outline on how to create your own script or dialogue that is personalized to you and who you are, so that you can decide how you best want to represent yourself the first time that you meet another English speaker, okay? So if we do not talk about these things or practice talking about these things beforehand, then when we are asked a question about something like our family or our schooling or our friends, we realize that if we have never talked about this in English, our head feels a little blocked, or it doesn't come off as naturally because we have experienced those things in our native language, possibly. So when we have to translate it over in our head, we still have not made those emotional connections between the language and our past memories. So that's what we are helping you do here today. The first thing I want to say are some topics that we are not going to prepare for, okay? These are things that if they interest you or are important to you specifically, you can prepare them and practice speaking about them, but this would be more for a long-term, stable, emotional relationship that you have someone in English. So a very good friend, or maybe a family member, or someone that you just really get along with and they feel open to talking about these topics. Otherwise, it is safer to not speak about these things when you meet someone for the first time, okay? They are sort of what we call taboo topics for a first conversation. So these 5 things are money, health, politics, religion, and anything negative. The last one, anything negative, is just good practice because no one wants to hear complaining or negative comments the first time they see someone. Okay, so just keep those in mind. And please do not ask someone about these topics the first time you meet them. Maybe if you have a better relationship long-term with that person, it is okay, but wait until they bring the topic up so that you don't make someone else feel uncomfortable. Okay, so now for the 5 topics that we should think about and that we should be prepared to talk about, because most likely someone, the first time they meet you, will ask you about these things. So these are really common topics. They are light, they are fun, and they are things that almost anyone can relate to. Okay, so here are the 5. Family and friends, your job, your schooling, your hobbies, and your country or your culture. Okay, so these are 5 things that people will most likely ask you about in some way, shape, or form the first time they meet you in English. So I want you to grab a pen and paper and take some notes here, okay? So for those 5 topics that I mentioned before that someone will most likely ask you about, If I asked you right now about each and every one of those questions, what would you say? We want to talk about the aspects that are most important to us, because when we talk about something that interests us or that we are passionate about, that makes us more captivating, right? We make people want to listen to us because they can tell we are excited about the topic. So I want you to choose the hobbies or the parts of school or the parts of your family that are most exciting to you. Talk about those positive things and people will want to listen more. And we want to make you a fun and captivating English speaker. We don't want you to be dull or boring, okay? So choose the parts that are most fun and exciting for you. Now, if this is your first time talking about one of these subjects, it may not come off very fluently. You may need some practice first because we have lived these experiences possibly in another language, in our native language, okay? So what I want you to do is make a list of the things that you have never talked about in English, right? So out of those 5, if you have never talked about your hobbies, so your interests, things you do in your free time, then go ahead and check that and say, I've never talked about this. And perhaps I've never talked about my schooling. So, I've never talked about this in depth either. Maybe your schooling was not in English and it was in another language. Now, I want you to practice speaking out loud. This could be in front of a mirror, or better, if you can record yourself. Notice that we have this theme. We keep recording ourselves and analyzing our English. We are going to keep doing that. It's very important. So record yourself if you can, if not, in front of a mirror, and explain these things, the things that are most important to you about each of these 5 common topics. For each part that you struggle with, or you have to think about more, or maybe you didn't know all the vocabulary to describe a particular hobby you have, or you did not know how to describe what you studied at university in English, then go ahead and make a note of that. What words did you not know? What words were difficult to say? And for each topic, we are going to make a list of the things that don't come off naturally, okay? And within this list, the vocabulary terms that we were not sure of, we're going to look them up. So we can use an online dictionary, a hardcover book dictionary, and look for what those words are. And for each word that we didn't know, we also want to have extra vocabulary. Okay, so what does that mean? Here, it's very important to have synonyms or words that mean the same thing. Okay, so I want to have a variety of different verbs or adjectives that I can think of in my head at any given moment, so that if I'm nervous the first time I'm speaking to a new person in English and I can't think of one word, oh, well, I can use this one. Okay, so I want you to have, if possible, at least 2 alternatives for each word that was difficult or not natural for you to express when you were telling that part of your story in English. For example, if I want to talk about my hobby of soccer, I can say, yes, I love soccer because it transformed me as a person. But maybe I can't think of the word transform. So instead of transform, I use impacted. It impacted me as a person. Okay, if I can't think of the verb impact, then what's even simpler than that? It changed me. It changed me as a person, okay? And when we have these multiple synonyms that we can pull from in our mind, then it's easier and more natural to tell the story. So now, to make sure that these words stay fixed in our brain and we really remember this new vocabulary that we have written down, I want you to tell the story with the new vocabulary. So you practice talking about each of these 5 topics the parts that are most important to you with the new vocabulary that you have learned. And while you tell it, consciously change the verbs and adjectives that you are using to use the synonyms that you thought of. And once you do that, once you use multiple words, terms, and phrases to describe something that is emotionally connected to you, you will remember those terms way more because you are associating the vocabulary with something that is important to you and something that you have experienced and something that you like and you love, okay? So that's very important. So I want you to record yourself the first time going through talking about each one of these topics. Every part that was difficult, write it down. Find the new vocabulary that you weren't sure of or that you did not feel confident about. And for each one of those vocabulary terms, find at least 2 synonyms, if possible, for that word so that you can pull from more vocabulary when you are maybe nervous and speaking to a new person for the first time in English. And if you really want to up your English level, try telling these things or talking about these topics to a friend or family member of yours once you have finished, so that you can practice saying it out loud to another person. If this friend or family member does not speak or understand English, that is no problem. You still get the opportunity to physically say this out loud and tell the story to another person. And that helps you get one step closer to being less nervous when you do it with a native or another English speaker. Okay? So really excited to see how you guys like this exercise. This is a really great way for you to customize the different topics that are most likely to be talked about the first time you meet someone in a casual conversation in English. If you want to practice even more these different aspects of speaking English with confidence and talking about common topics and introducing yourself, make sure to come to our Zoom meetings on Fridays in the group English Without Borders, where we talk about open discussion, okay? There you can have the opportunity to do this in front of other people in a safe and healthy environment where no one is there to judge. We are all there to support, encourage, and help each other thrive in our English language journeys. All right, let me know in the comments below how you liked part 2 and come back tomorrow for part 3.